Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Diane Whidden, and I am thrilled today to have Sam Crawford on the show. Sam runs By Crawford, an award-winning Squarespace web design agency with over 450 websites in his portfolio. How's it even possible? We don't know. We're going to get into it. Sam is an official Squarespace expert, partner, and community leader, and he's also developed a very cool course, the Six Figure Design Club, where he teaches new web designers his methods and processes. Sam, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to give you a little bit of context into why I was so excited to have you on the show and why I'm so fascinated by your process. So a lot of people know of my audience, I built a WordPress design agency. I started building websites in 2006, built a whole agency, got frustrated with WordPress, sold it. And then a couple years ago, kind of rediscovered Squarespace, fell in love, and was like, I think I can do this again in a sort of boutique way. But of course, the big headache is, oh my gosh, how do I get content from clients? This is such a headache for designers. It's so hard. And I had subscribed to the sort of old way of doing things where I need every piece of content from the client. I need every comma, every word, every image, everything, and stress my clients out. But like, that's what I need to build a website. And then I found one person in an obscure WordPress workshop from ages ago that said, we don't really need content from clients. Like, the best content collection strategy is just no content collection strategy. And I was fascinated by it and kind of tried to play in this sandbox, fell in love with it, and then found you and your content. And I have binged so many hours of your content. He has a fantastic YouTube channel if you haven't checked it out. But you are the only other person I have ever come across who has this like miracle view of like, look, don't bother your clients with content. We don't have to stress them out with that. Like, let's just jump in and do the job that we know how to do. So that's what we're going to dive in today. Sam, would you give us a little bit of an intro into your process, how that came about, how you got this genius idea?
Yeah, so I'd love to say it came from like months and months of introspective work, but I just got lucky. I got really lucky because this was the way I started out. Because to me, it just made sense. Like, if we just quickly flip it to, let's imagine you're the client and you go to a web designer. You don't know it until you see it. Like, everyone says that, I won't know it until I see it. And so it makes sense that we would say to the client, hey, you don't have to write reams and reams of content that I will chisel away. I will do the thing first and you write the content to fit into the design, because it's nigh on impossible for a client to think in advance of all the images they'll need, all the video they need, all the button call to actions they need, all the written content they need. If they could think of all that and conceptualize where all of that would go, then they could just build the site. Like, they need you to be like, hey, don't worry. I know, based on our discussions, like an onboard form or whatever, like what you're looking for. Let's slot the content in, because, when it comes to a project, if you are waiting for content, it's going to drag on for like a month before you've even done the first thing.
At
And then,
least.
yeah, the likelihood is then you'll do the first draft and then they'll go, oh, actually, that content doesn't fit now. Do we need
Right.
to rewrite it and then resupply it? You could have things going on for like 6 months. And if I'm looking at that as a client, I'm thinking, or if I'm experiencing that, I'm like, I'm not coming back to this person again. This is a really convoluted process that just doesn't need to be whatsoever. Feedback and stuff can be regimented, but content collection should be a little bit more fluid, because design by nature is fluid. So I just landed on that initially. As I say, got really lucky. And then I realized I was like the only person who did this, because everyone else was like, nope, gotta collect it, gotta have this, gotta have this. And they're almost like fighting their clients to get everything in place beforehand. And then what you find is you have a very text heavy site. It's quite blocky. It's like text, image, button, text, button. And it's like, where's the flair? So you've got to leave room for flair.
I love that. I think that's so true when you pressure, because that's the other problem when you pressure the client for every single sentence, comma, word, everything. Well, now you're stuck with it because they crafted it or hired a copywriter or whatever to create this whole thing. And now it's like, well, how do I design around this? And you don't, like you said, design is fluid. I think that's going to be a quote we'll have to put in a social image later. I love that. But yeah, you want to preserve that sense of flow and creativity throughout the process because design and copy work together. So, okay, so let's get a little granular. So of course I know what your process is because I've gone frame by frame through your YouTube videos, but for the people who haven't stalked your content, talk a little bit about how, like, what exactly do you get from a client to start before you start building? What's your like minimum viable content amount?
So it's really, really simple. It's literally like, okay, so let's say, I've got a big design agency. People may think, oh, he's got all this crazy software and, what's your tech stack? It's literally just a G Drive. So send the client a G Drive. Prior to that, I'll have an onboard form. So I use a software called Bonsai for that, but it's literally just a form with questions on. I then use that to do the quote, and then that also acts as my North Star when I'm building, like reference websites, which is a big one. How many pages? What do you want the functionality to be, if any? Then it's just a G Drive. So I'll send them a link and say,
Can I stop you really quick?
Yep.
Because you're glossing over a key point. This bonsai form with the questions, because that, I can hear myself listening and be like, but what are all the questions and how many? It's literally, it's like fewer than a dozen questions you ask, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point because it's something else I teach my students in particular. Like, if you're a client and to just get a quote, you need to fill out a 20-minute form, and like such superfluous questions are on there, like, where did you find me? Like, you can ask the client that further down the line when you've got them like in a project. That's not something that should be upfront. There's so much fluff in the forms that you will lose clients at the form stage. They'll go, well, that's too long, I just want a quote. And you need to dial it in so it's so effective without taking all the client's time. So really important questions to have. Obviously, name and deadline, so you can track who it was that submitted the form and when they need the whole site built by. But then in terms of specifics, 3 inspiration websites. Don't get them to list tons. 3 is enough to build like your Frankenstein's monster of cool element here, cool element there, but also ask them why. So one you like, why, another one, why, another one, why. And then just amount of pages, specific function. So if they want like a categorization on the blogs, or they want a portfolio page, or whatever it is, you could probably get away with just that. I have a few more things in there now, but yeah, nothing crazy. It's really important just to make everything as seamless as possible for a client. So like, here's a call booking link, hop on a call, here's the form. Okay, here's the proposal. Click accept, pay deposit, and then you'll get the G Drive. So it's a G Drive link. There's 3 folders. There's imagery, video, copy. And I say, whenever, just drop it in. For now, I'm going to use royalty-free imagery. If you know that you want a video somewhere, I'll use royalty-free video, and I'll do just lorem ipsum or AI-generated text, whatever. And then the burden is off the client. Then they can just feedback on the design, and we can drop in content right at the end, as long as we've got like the right colors, fonts, general design direction. It's almost like the cherry on top to put the content in. Now, obviously, imagery, video, and copy will change a site, and it's super important. But if we've already got the design perfected, then we could actually hand over the site without the client even like giving us anything. We can say, well, here's your handover training. Because we're on Squarespace, because it's so easy, because it's so seamless, you know how to do all of this. Like, here's how to upload an image. Here's how to edit the image. Here's how to put a video in. Here's how to make it autoplay. All these things can be done then by the client. So, this may not work in a WordPress or a Drupal. It might do, I don't know. But because of Squarespace's unique capabilities in terms of anyone can do it, it makes our process so much slicker than conventional agencies.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So much slicker. Yes. Yes. Because it would not work. WordPress
Yeah.
would not work, Drupal. There's no way you could hand anything over to a client without it being done to the very last letter. I mean, you can't even work in WordPress and see what you're doing. They have to make changes and then you publish it and then you have to check it. And there's no way a client could do that, not even with text. But yeah, the way Squarespace is what you see is what you get. I mean, you're totally right. You're blowing my mind a little bit that like we could hand a site to a client without even not only taking content from them, but never getting content from them. There's no content in it. Here you go. Like that's like the most winning strategy I've ever heard in my life. But okay, so I have so many questions. So the first thing I just kind of want to underline is this has got to feel so supportive to your clients because you're not overwhelming them and confusing them with a bunch of, like you said, forms and questions and give me all your content for all this stuff that they can't visualize and understand because they're not website designers beforehand. But then when they are responsible for getting content, they have a guide. Like they can actually walk through the site that you've built and see where things are going to go. That's got to make their life easier, right?
100%. It's like if you think whenever you go to another freelancer, so I'm looking at, well, I've just hired yesterday a LinkedIn ghostwriter to help me create better LinkedIn posts, basically, because I'm not a great writer. And basically I was thinking, okay, what's his process going to be? And he walked me through it. And essentially he was like, okay, just do a brain dump into this one page. And then you can track everything else, all the posts I'm going to do in this table and this table. So for just one input on my side, I could track all the outputs and I could say yay or nay to the posts and I can edit, like, however.
Yeah.
And this is what I would want from a designer is, okay, you just need one single point of like input. So you just put your stuff in here and don't worry about it ever again. Like, here are your guardrails.
Right.
I will take care of the rest. And the training is what's really important as well, is because you give the client autonomy then. Like, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I found that like the more I try and coach myself out of a job for a client, like at the end, I'm like, you should never have to hire me again. The more they feel confident in like, oh, yeah, this is my site. And, let's say they didn't have the content ready. They'd be confident enough to go, okay, like we'll sign off. That's fine. I have everything that I need. And it makes the client feel like they're not rushed. They're confident in their own site. They're confident in their own ability to have ownership of that site. And it just doesn't leave a sour taste in the mouth. Like, I've had it way back when I hired a WordPress developer and they were like, we need this, 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 and this. Oh no. And then you'd ask them to do something and they'd be like, no, that can't be done. Or that can't be done. Or that's immediately out of scope. We're going to have to charge, 3 or 4 hours to change a block. And I just thought, why are you trying to make my life hard? It was like they got a kick out of saying no and being obtuse, like purposefully obtuse. And I was like, surely there's got to be a better way. And then all of this was then born, and it worked. Like, it worked.
Awesome. I love that you designed this and built this based on what you would want to have. Like, I think that's such a good guide. And we have some really good comments, so I want to read through those really quick. Bloom says, good morning, everyone. I'm excited for today's chat. Jay says, can't wait for this. Morning, Sam. JZ Iada says, DL fam. Yeah. And Caitlin says, ha, 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 love this discussion. And LOL. Yeah, Caitlin's awesome. Okay, so there's so much good stuff here. So I want to go back to, you just said you were going into a tangent, and I want to underline something you said, because I think this is really important, because I've noticed this with my clients too. you were talking about like sort of working yourself out of a job, like making yourself obsolete with the client of like, look, I'm going to give you every single thing that you need. And like sort of holding their hand in a way, like especially through the end. I talk all the time about how a launch is usually really stressful for clients. I mean, if they're coming to web designers, they're in some kind of transition in their business, or it's a brand new business. And then we're building them this platform that's going to make them visible to the entire world. So launches are stressful. And this idea of, because you talk about this a lot in your content, of don't give them a tutorial library that's generic. They've just paid you how many thousands of dollars. Give them a customized walkthrough of everything that is relevant to them and their business and their site. And once I started doing this, because at first I built the tutorial library I thought I had to have. And then after watching your content, I was like, oh my gosh, this is easier on me because I don't have to update the whole tutorial library when Squarespace doesn't update. But also, I know this client's business. I've just spent how many weeks with them. Let me give them this like customized thing that they can tell them exactly what they need. So I think this part's actually really important. If you want to talk a little bit about what you do for clients at the end.
Yeah, so the way I talk about it, like it probably gets some people's backs up, but I feel like it's a slap in the face to a client if you're like, here's a link, especially like if it's to a Squarespace help article, it's like, are you kidding? I've just paid like, some sites could run you up 20K and you won't spend 15 minutes, tops 15 minutes doing a video on the site. It's like, come on. What you want to do, I say to a client, I'm going to give you everything that you do need and nothing that you don't. Because if you go into the forums or the help articles or whatever, you can like drown in information. And so it can be really hard to just find what you need because you end up being pulled in all these directions. So what you want to say to the client is, hey, here's pages, here's where that lives. Here's your linked and your not linked section. Here's the front end and the back end of a page, and explore all the options in there. Then design, site styles, and then maybe settings. If they don't want to give me their password for a domain as well, I'll say, okay, well, here's how you link the domain. Here's how you push it live. Here's the hosting plan that I recommend. So it's like they don't have to think. What I love in any other service provider is just don't make me think. Just say, here is what you need. I, as an expert, know exactly what you need. Here it is. Do it. It's like a personal trainer. Like I have a personal trainer, and I said when I did the onboard with him, I was like, I don't even care why it works. I don't even care what it is. Here's my goals. Here's what I want. Just tell me what to do. Tell me what to eat. And I don't want to think. I'm not even paying. I am paying for the outcome, but I'm paying to free up the mental bandwidth as well. I'm paying not to think. And so same applies to web design. The client, if they're going to pay a professional designer, they want the design done. They don't want to have to think, okay, so that comes into the content. Oh, I can see when I need the content. Very minimal thinking. Bang, there's the content. When it comes to the handover, I don't want to be exploring analytics or, commerce if I'm not a commerce store. I just want 10 minutes. Here's where everything that you need or may need is. Full autonomy. There you go. And then I offer 30 days of free email support as well. So if they did have anything that was missed or they have any questions, then it's just an extra buffer of support for them. And it just makes them feel like, okay, no panic. As you say, the launch is super stressful. So some web designers will just like disappear after the launch. It's like, done, got the money, bye. Like if you can just stick around a little bit, it puts the client at ease and it makes them think, okay, this person cares about what I do. They care about getting me through and launched and, safe online. And then they will recommend you to tons of other people. This has happened so much as referrals because it feels like you've gone the extra mile, even though that should really just be the industry standard.
Right. Yeah. And Bloom just asked, do you record the lessons for the client on a particular app? Do you use Loom?
I use Loom. Yeah. So Loom is, for those watching who don't know, it's a free either app on your computer or you can get a Google Chrome extension. I pay for the pro version just because you only get a 5-minute cap, I think, on the free version. But if you get the paid, it's unlimited.
Yeah. And it's very reasonable too. And it's such a good tool to be able to do the screen share and everything and give stuff to clients is huge. Okay, so that's amazing. Okay, so let's go back to something else that you said about your process. So you have a really simple, Bloom says thank you. So you have a really simple, so you talk about the Google Drive. This is another thing. I know a lot of people, they're afraid they're not going to look fancy to their clients. They want to look like they're fancy and have a lot going on, and they want to put their clients through a really fancy portal. And that's something else that I also stopped doing. I use Google Docs and a Google Drive, same thing. So would you talk about that? Like, what's the benefit to you and to your clients with doing it that way?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a client portal, it looks great and it sounds like amazing. Like, oh, I can check the portal. But if you're a web design client, right, or you're either a business owner or the decision maker, you just want to say do that and then it gets done. You don't want to have to like log in to a dashboard and see every small granular thing with no context. So all you should ever really see in a web design build is the form, the place to upload any content, which would be the G Drive, and then the site. You don't need to see anything else. If you want to communicate, just do it on email. Like, people will want to send like people onto Slack, the clients onto Slack. And it's like, okay, if that client uses Slack, great. But most people don't. Most people don't have to log on to another app and be like, oh, let me just check what channel I'm in. No one wants to do that. Just email them once with an update and then get the feedback. Like, I don't think a dashboard is necessary whatsoever. I've worked with, recently I've done a $75,000 website. All they wanted was a walkthrough of the site. So whenever I update a client, it'll be a Loom video just explaining the design and why things are the way they are to give the client context. And then I'll send them a link to an app called Markup. So Markup just allows the client to annotate. Instead of having to write out this big email, it's like, change this, I like this, change this. And they can do that on the whole site. So again, seamless, less friction, less need for back and forth. The less a client can even touch the site, the better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's markup.io if anyone wants the link for it. Yeah, great way to get feedback from a client. Super easy, super intuitive, really clear. Okay, so I love that. Okay, so I want to go back to something else that you said too, because you said you don't consider yourself a good writer.
Yeah.
But isn't your background in copywriting?
Well, it was, and then I wasn't very good. So I was a copywriter for like 18 months, maybe longer actually. And I racked up on a freelance platform called People Per Hour. I racked up like 80 reviews, all 5-star. I don't know what I was doing right, but I'm not like trained in English prose whatsoever. I was just kind of faking it really. And I always because I type so quick, I always make spelling errors, and I don't know the best like writing engagement tactics. So I was like, let me find someone who does and just pay them. Just find people who are good at the thing you want to do and just pay them. That's my motto.
That's so interesting. Okay, so here's why I wanted to ask you that. So I sort of consider myself a writer before an artist. It's just kind of why I gravitated towards design, is that like the psychology of getting someone to do what you want them to do through words and design is really fascinating to me. And then the only other woman I found that WordPress workshop, she was a writer. And then when I heard you were a copywriter, I was like, I wonder if there's something to that, but you don't consider yourself a great writer. So do you think that plays into this no content first approach at all?
Do you know what? Probably I write how I speak. There's no there is no difference whatsoever. And so it's not very professional. Like in emails, I'll just write really, is it colloquial? I don't even know. See, I don't even know the words.
Probably.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe I feel like when someone comes to you as the web designer, they are valuing the design first. That's where they've put their money, unless they're paying a copywriter to do things, parallel to what you're doing right there and then. Their priority is the design. And so it's your responsibility to do the design, and the content will come secondary. They will learn over time that obviously content should be just as important as the design. But when you think about it, when someone goes through a web page, they're not going to read everything. They're just going to scan. So you will give a client a good idea of what the website will look like, what the user experience will look like, with the length of your titles and the length of the paragraphs. So if you can roughly get that right, they can optimize till the cows come home, once the design's done.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's go back to your process a little bit. Let's get into that a little bit more. One of the things that you said when you were kind of walking through the steps that you go through with a client, you were talking about how you get the form from them, then you send the proposal, then they click approve the proposal, and then you start the build. So you don't do a contract.
No, this is something that shocks literally everyone who I talk. I've never done a contract with a web design build unless the client has specifically asked for it, because I just don't feel like a contract actually benefits us. Like, I work with people predominantly in the US, and no one's ever not going to pay anyway, because I always take a 50% deposit, and they don't have access to the site, so they're never gonna they can't run away with the site. It's mine until they pay. And they've already got sunken costs of 50%. So it makes no logical sense not to pay. But if it got to the point where they weren't going to pay, well, then what would me having a contract do to that? Maybe this is me being naive, but if they literally don't have the money to pay, well, what good is a contract? I can't get the money off them, especially if they're all in a different country. Different laws apply, yada yada. And it's it puts more responsibility on the designer as well, a contract, and I don't want any legal ramifications. And so the less legal stuff I can have, the better. Now, I will say, in the proposal, I outline like the process and the scope. So there's always something to refer back to on, like, these are the deliverables. That's what you agreed to. It's not a contract, but you can see here what we agreed to. And so I can always reference that if they request things that are like wildly out of scope, or they try and question the amount of money that needs to be paid. But it's a bit of a, I don't know if the word's logical fallacy, but when people think, oh, you're going to need all these contracts and blah, blah, blah. It's literally never, ever, ever happened to me in about 450 projects where a client has just like ran away and not paid. Maybe I'm lucky, but I think it's blown way out of proportion.
I love that so much. Okay, I want to talk more about this a little bit, because and a proposal is legally binding. If you say a thing, you can say a thing in a proposal that says, your agreement makes this an agreement between us both. But so it can literally be good enough. But I know people go nuts with having a contract that has all these, so many terms and conditions, right? Like, it's this 8-page novel, war and peace of all of this stuff. And you're right, at the end of the day, a contract is only useful insofar as it's enforceable. So if a client doesn't pay you, you've got a contract, but so what? If you're not going to sue them to get payment or go through collections or something, the contract doesn't do you any good. Now, we are not lawyers. I am not a lawyer. Sam is not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. But I think this is, again, one of the really genius parts of your work that I've been so fascinated by, is that you are so attuned to what makes a client's life easier and to what makes a client's life, Caitlin's laughing that we're not attorneys, what makes a client's life easier and what makes the process more seamless. I'm sure it's probably birthed by your goal to, what would be good for you, or like what would feel good to you and what you would enjoy. But I just love this too. It's just contract. That's a pain. Chuck it. I don't need that. Let's just build the site. But because you're doing everything else in so much integrity, and you really care about your clients, you care about everyone. You really care about all. I can just see you when you're talking to web designers, you're like rooting for us so hard in your content. And I know that comes across to your clients. And so when they feel that, they see how you show up, you're constantly making the process easy on that. Clients love that. Like you're saying, you know, when you create a customer service experience that makes them feel cared for and considered, I mean, why the heck would they not pay? It doesn't surprise me at all. You've never had anybody give you a hard time about it. I think this is like just really, really an important piece. Have you ever had a client give you an issue with money at all, or anything like that where you're, man, I wish I had put that in the proposal or I had that in writing?
Well, first off, thank you very much. I saw a couple of comments there. Thanks, guys. I've had one client ever. The company went bust, and you made a really good point. And something I forgot to say is like, you will not enforce if your debt is like 2K. It's going to cost you at least 2K to try and enforce it, and you may not win. Especially the company in this case when I completely bust. What am I going to do? What good is a contract? And so what good is it worrying the client about all of this legal process and jargon that they may have to then take to legal to sign off on this and this and this? It's just way too much friction. You think about it when you buy something online, you may tick a box, but like you don't need to read through tons and tons of legal documents. You just buy it and you get the service. That's what I want to do for my clients. And to answer your question, yeah, I've only had that once, and I do make tweaks to my proposal over time. So it will outline the process. So like, this is how I work. This is how I supply feedback. I had a client last week question this like a month in. He was like, I don't want to learn markup. And I was like, oh, well, it's a 30-second video, but okay, fine. What's going to make your life easier? So we're going to hop on an hour-long call tomorrow, and we're going to go through the site together. So what I would say to people is, have your processes, but don't ram it down the client's throat. If the client is like, this is an old agenda, and he's like, I don't want to learn it. I'm like, okay, like you come to me as the expert. You've come to me for a solution. I'm not going to like hold you prisoner to my process. So I'm going to do it live, get it right. And then I'll talk to him about, okay, this is the process that we can do. So, obviously the title of this live is about processes. You can be firm, but just have a bit of flexibility for clients who, okay, maybe they didn't read your fine print. Just try and get them to the perfect solution.
I love that. I think that's such a good point too. I echo that completely, because I'm very much a fan of like boundaries with clients and protect your creativity and protect your process and the whole thing. But at the end of the day, if a client is really struggling with something, like you said, I'm not going to hold them prisoner. It's like, I'm the pro here. I've got some give. Let's figure out how to make it work for you, because at the end of the day, I want you happy. I want you to have a great site, and like, let's move on. So that's brilliant. Okay, so we have a few comments. Oh, Linda says, hi, Diane. Love this. Awesome. Walter Brown says, sounds like a contract is more of a list of things that could go wrong, giving your new clients things to worry about. Yeah, exactly. True. I saw a meme years ago that said something like, every time I get a new client, I go in and add another clause to my contract. I think that's how they get so long, because every problem you have with a client, you're adding new clauses, and it's like, that's not going to help. And then Jay says, can you give a short run through of how you would reach out to potential clients that are interested in a website? Yeah. I think that's a great idea. You want to take that, Sam?
Yeah. So again, this is another sort of, I don't know if it's a controversial take, but people think, cold outreach, like that's the best way to do it, knock on doors, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't work for me. Like, you have to get in touch with this person, find someone who's receptive. Then you've got to convince them, which is the hardest part, that they need a website or a new website. Then you need to show them the value of it. Then you need to convince them out of all the web builders that Squarespace is the one for them. Then you've got to convince them that you're the person to build the Squarespace website for them. Then you've got to convince them on a price, and then the process. So that's 7 different things that you have to convince a person on. And you think all the people who just straight up will put you into spam, what a waste of time that is.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to meet a client when they know they want a website, they know they want Squarespace. All you need to do is convince them that you are the person, and then the price is right. What you do there is you get them on a call, then you send them the onboard form, then you just send them the proposal. So to answer the question from Jay, a run through how you would reach out to them. Go to where these people are. Go to where people know they want a website and know they want a Squarespace website. That's going to be LinkedIn, where people are saying, hey, does anyone know a Squarespace designer? Great. Search Squarespace, filter by recency, scroll every 24 hours. There's loads of nonsense on there, but you'll find people looking for Squarespace designers. Then you want to go on Upwork, check all that out. There's like 20 jobs a day. Just, if you're just starting out, bid low, do a nice personalized proposal, get in there, get on a call. Then eventually you want to build up a bit more of an inbound system. So blogs, YouTube, appearances like this, forum help with a link in your signature. So when you give someone a solution, people can see the solution, click to get in touch, blah, blah, blah. What you want to then do is just try and get everyone on a call. Doesn't matter if the lead looks a little bit like they don't have a ton of money. Get them on a call. It's only 10 minutes, sometimes only 5, and listen to the problems and say, okay, cool, we can do that. Here's my onboard form. Look at the onboard form, send off the proposal. It's such low effort, but it feels to the client like, you're listening. Well, you are, but like you're listening to the problems, you are finding solutions for them. And based on the form, they kind of give away what their budget is anyway. You don't really want to talk about the budget on a call. It makes you feel like, or it makes the client feel like you're really trying to not extort them, but it's just not good to talk about money on the call unless the client specifically says, we have this amount. Like, what can
It
we
makes
get
them
for
feel like they're put on the spot or something. Yeah,
yeah. And even when a client says to me, how much is this going to cost? It's like, well, how long is a piece of string? You could be asking for a 1,000,000-page e-commerce website with JavaScript all through it, or a 1-page drag and drop 2-hour build. Both websites. So you need to say, well, once you filled out the form, I can give you an exact quote, and that's how I do it. Like, you don't need to specifically try and find these people; they already exist. It's just about being on the right platforms to get in front of them.
That's such good advice. That is brilliant advice for how to get your first clients and how to bring in those people. It's really great. And just great advice. I'm like that. There's like 2 YouTube shorts in there already. I'm so excited. Okay, and I want to go back. I missed a comment from Christian. Congrats on all the great work you do, Sam. Keep it up, and best of luck on your move to London, because you're moving to London soon, right?
Yeah, we're going in January. Super excited. We found a place today, so we just need the offer to be accepted, and
awesome.
And we're all good.
Congrats! That's so cool. Oh, I'm so happy for you. And Linda says, I want to make sure I've got everybody. Yeah. So you answered Jay's question. And Linda says, I've done this with some of my older clients. It builds a very strong relationship, and you never know what it will produce in the future. Absolutely. And Christiane says, Sam is great. Love his content. Yes, I know we all do. We love Sam. And then Bo says, by any chance, do you know how I can get a table in my Squarespace website?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a plugin from Square Websites. It's just called like the table plugin. I think it's $15 or something. But if you go onto my website, so bycrawford.com/blog, I've got a blog on how to create one with HTML. So go to there, have a look at that. If that's not good enough, then you can get the Square Websites plugin, and that is really good.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so I want to go back to what you were saying, because you just rattled that off about like how to get clients and bring them in. You're just like, here's the whole process. So that's got to be the stuff that you teach in your course, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about what you teach in your course and who it's really good for and like the problems that you solve with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a nutshell, like the elevator pitch is, I'll take Squarespace designers and web designers in general, to be fair, from wherever they are right now to 100K a year in less than 12 months. That is the headline promise. Now, what it is about 80 plus video lessons of me sitting down. It's just Loom videos where I'll be like, this is exactly what you need to do. It's step by step. Here's all the software you need. Here's all the templates that I've got ready for you. Here's all the places to find work. Here's how to close the work. Here's how to scale. Here's how to manage all your clients. All it's done for you. All you have to do is set up the profiles and pitch. Like, that's it. So that's the program, like the course. Then we've got the community. So there's about, overall, I think about 400 people, but in the, because it's a Facebook community and obviously not everyone has Facebook, but there's 200 people in there. I am there every day. You can get me one-to-one. I always drop like snippets in there, reply to everyone, but then there's dozens of posts every single day. People sharing work. Someone just shared a $7,000 Shopify site in there. Like literally just before I come on. Then people like doing cool codes in there, sharing their wins. If they're struggling, people will support. It's amazing. And then like we do, so I just put on a rooftop dinner in New York completely for free for everyone in Dumbo House after Squarespace Circle Day. Then we did before that a rooftop dinner in London. Then we're going to do a villa retreat in Girona, Spain towards the end of the year. There's so much in there. I also send, I think you can see it just behind me. There's a bottle of champagne and a trophy. When you hit your first 8K month, which would make you 8 times 12, 100K, you'll get one of those for free. It's like a customized bottle of Moet champagne or a trophy if you don't drink. There's so much in there. Like I get excited talking about it because there's people who've been through and they've changed their lives. Like there's a guy called Nick, who I don't know if anyone's seen him here, but he's from the same city as me. He's literally spent his life savings on the course and then one-to-one coaching. Last month he done 10K. This month he's going to do 10K. Hopefully next month he'll do even more. And there's tons of people like that. I use him because he's in the same city and like he's done work for me now. Because like people who thrive in there, I will hire them because I'm like, well, why wouldn't I? It's just it's the best. It's the best.
It's awesome. It sounds like the best. Again, with how much Sam loves his people and roots for everyone, it's amazing. Your energy is just so contagious about all of this stuff. Okay, so one last question on process. Okay, so I want to go back into the granular because there was one more thing that you said when you were talking about your process that I remember tripped me up when I was trying to implement this. What is, and I know it's because I go way into too much detail on discovery calls, like because the client starts telling me their problems and all I want to do is solve everything and it can turn into a 45-minute coaching call. What is the scope of a sales call versus what you're getting from them on the form? Because one of the things that's interesting to me is you have the sales call, then you send them the form, then you send them the proposal. So what are you trying to get from those two first steps?
So there's method to the madness in this one. With the call, as soon as you get on a call with a client, you are vetted enough that the close should be pretty easy. It's only going to boil down to quality of the proposal. That's it. So you want to get the client on a call as soon as possible, because if they agree, like if they take the time to book the call and they agree to actually turn up, they will have done enough prior research on your portfolio to be like, okay, I trust this person to deliver the website. So that's the biggest thing, is to get them on the call. Once you've done that, so again, I don't know if everyone else does this, but I will just ask them, and I do this for everyone. I say, hey, let's say it's me and you. Hey, Diane, how's things? And then like a minute. And I say, okay, cool. So if you could just tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for from the website, we can go from there. And then I'll just lean back in the chair, and then they will just like start talking. And I'll go, okay, cool. And they often, most times, don't even ask me a question. They just want to let everything out. And then I'll go, okay, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you my onboard form. And I have the onboard form saved up here on Google Chrome in a tab. So I'll just copy it. And I say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you this form, paste it into the messages in the chat. If you could fill this out, it'll be kind of like a recap of what we've been through, and then a few other things that help me give you a proposal. I'll give you a full in-depth proposal with a price. If you like it, we can go from there. Like, that's it. And that will take 5 minutes.
Wow.
I'll give it 15 minutes in the calendar with a 15-minute buffer, because 15 minutes gives them a sense of urgency. Most clients, like not most, but a lot of clients will come on and say, oh, hey, I know we've only got 15 minutes. Let's get into it. Yeah. But, some people like to go over. That's fine. Like, if I then have to do a little bit of talking, if they ask me questions, then okay, maybe we'll go over. But they know 15 minutes. Oh, we've done 25 minutes. Sam really cares. Sam is happy to go over. I am, but by putting it in as 15 minutes, it makes them feel like they've already got so much more value. So do that recap, which the onboard forms just have everything in writing. We've kind of already gone over it on the call, but it's just so we've got it in writing. Then I can go through, use what I've got to give a quote, send the quote. It's not awkward like on a call, just saying it's going to be $10,000. It's just awkward. So, it's easy for them to digest, look at everything first. The price comes right at the end, because it's like, okay, I want to see all the value first, what I'm going to get, then price. And then just under price is a bit of social proof. So like, why choose me? Here's why I'm so great. You want to talk about them and the like solution, how you're going to help them, then a price, and then right at the end, well, okay, maybe it's a little bit much, but this is why, this is who I am. And then that will hopefully give you a better chance of closing. So that's why I do it that way. Some people will send the form and then do the call. But if you send the form and then the client's like, maybe you've got prices on the form, they're only going to look at the price first. Or if you do the proposal before the call, they're only going to go straight down to the price. They don't understand you. They haven't been able to list their problems. It doesn't make sense that you've been able to do a proposal without hearing about the problems first. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's the logical way to do it. And that's the way I think everyone should do it.
I love that. I love that. And I think you're really right. As soon as a client gets on the phone with you, there's a certain investment that's already been made. Like you said, they've already done their research. They've vetted you enough to say to themselves, okay, it's worth getting on a phone call with someone. But then they're spending time with you on the phone. And especially if you've just shut up for 15 or 20 minutes and they've just like, oh, Sam's amazing. He's so fascinating and he's so great. And, but they got to tell their story and talk about everything that's hurting them. Okay, so on your proposal, do you give them options? Do you give them pricing options, or like 3 options or add-ons or anything like that?
It's too many. You don't want to give them options. Like Henry Ford, he said, my customers can have any color car as long as it's black. But I had a student of mine ask this the other day. So what I'm experimenting with it on my form is tiered pricing. So Tier 1 starts from 2.5K. Tier 2 starts from 6.5K. Tier 3 is 20K plus. And it's basically amount of pages and complexity of site goes up and up and up. And so I'm giving them options here. So if they click one, they consent to being charged at least this. Otherwise, why would you finish the form?
Right.
But then when it comes to the proposal, it's like, well, here is that one thing. Now, on my form, I do have a couple of yes or no questions for graphic design, because I also have a graphic design company, and SEO, because I use SEO Space as a partner agency. If they click yes or not sure, so it's yes, not sure, no. If they click yes or not sure, it opens the door for me to pitch that. So in the proposal, it would be website build. You can click to accept that. And then there's a graphic design quote for 5 hours, which would be like $500 or something. And then SEO, actually SEO is just a link to a Henry's free audit form. So they will have actually, and one more thing, I'm a Squarespace enterprise customer, so I can give the clients free hosting. So I'll just charge a slight buffer on top of that. And then say, you know, maybe you get an hour of me time a month. So there are 3 things, but they're not choosing between them. It's just, you know, website build, graphic design, hosting, which it's like a you know, build your own package. But if they didn't even scroll that far, they just saw the website package, they just click that, click accept, and it's done. If you have to choose between like different website options, there's too much complexity. Yes or no is fine. Like website, graphic design, hosting, yes or no. Whereas if they're like, oh, 4 pages, but 100 lines of CSS, what? And they don't understand it, it's too complex.
Yeah. Again, you're just introducing more resistance, more sticky stuff for them to get caught up in.
Exactly.
Okay. So in the time, so when you get off the discovery call, how long does it usually take them to give you back the form?
About an hour most of the time, because what I do is, and this is, it's all the really small things. So because I have the link there, I put it into the chat, they click the link and it's open. Like it's already on the computer.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, I'll fill it in after the call. And then they just do it. And what this also does is it opens up the opportunity. If you don't hear from them in a couple of days, you can say, oh, assuming it was lost, like you didn't click it in the chat. And so how would you have access to it? Here's the email with the link, and that will prompt them to do it. So it's just an excuse to follow up without being like, oh, hey, can you fill it in? So it's kind of double pronged. You want to get them to get it up, and that gets things going really quickly. And then, you know, once it's up, they fill it in, they get a proposal within half an hour. It's all pretty fresh, so they can just click accept. You've got your 50%, and things can get going really quickly. Everything's so seamless. Maybe there's other things that I can make smoother in the process. I don't know, but this feels like the smoothest possible route at the moment, what I have. And it just works so well.
Yeah, I was going to say it seems pretty seamless. It seems like you've really thought through all the bumps and ironed them out. And like, yeah, you really have a flawless system that you work with clients. And it's so cool that you teach this. Not only have you figured this out, but you teach it in your course and you also teach it in your content. So this was so awesome. Sam, thank you so much for being here and being so transparent about your process and the way you work with clients. I think this was so valuable, and I'm just so thrilled to have you on today. This was great.
Thank you very much, Diane. And thank you everyone for obviously coming and all the comments and stuff. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.